Hi everyone, it's Charlotte here, and today I'm going to be doing a rather different video really. It's saying what my biggest mistakes as a past guinea pig owner have been. So these are mistakes that I made probably around my mid-teens when I first got my guinea pigs. I did do research on them, but obviously I didn't do enough research. Availability for the internet and stuff wasn't as great back then, and also I didn't actually really have a book, although I should have got one, and I'm sure I could have got my hands on one back then. So I do feel very guilty for what my past care was kind of like, and I thought it would be good to make it aware to those that I am not perfect. I am always striving for the best care for my guinea pigs now, and I really wish I could turn back time and do the same for my old guinea pigs. So we all make mistakes, and this is just a video to summarise that and to also point out what is a mistake and what should be changed. If you're at the moment, if you've got guinea pigs and any of these come up and you think, oh, this seems similar to what my situation is at the moment, you might want to have a look at your care and research and have a good research of it. But also, you know, don't always take my word for it, because I'm not an expert, but I have had experience obviously with guinea pigs, and I've had these 3 at the moment for, well, the eldest 2 for around 2 years now. So I've had a lot of time to research, and the older I get, the better I am getting with it. So I think when you're a child, you're more selfish, so learning to look after an animal is much harder, whereas when you grow up a bit, it's a lot easier, and you actually appreciate the animal for what they are, not just for that it's for you. So I'm going to get on with the video and go over the 5 top ones, and I'll probably go in order of kind of how I made the mistakes, so it kind of makes more sense to you all. But anyway, so what I'm trying to say really is that I have made mistakes and I've rectified them, and I've made sure that I have definitely not made these mistakes with my current guinea pigs. And as owners, we are never perfect, so I'm not perfect in what I do, but I am always looking to improve their lives and give enrichment and give better care and give better cage size and like more social company and things like that. So I'm always looking to strive for the best. So that is what every really owner of any animal should be doing. They should always be looking to improve their animals' lives and make it the best that they can, because these animals are our whole responsibility. They are not able to help themselves, they are completely vulnerable to life, and they are put in these cages and put in these places from us, so they have no choice where they are. And so we have a whole responsibility to maintain and make sure that their lives are perfect, well, as perfect as can be. So make sure that you're doing the best that you possibly can for them. So that is what I'm going to be addressing obviously in this video, and I'm going to be addressing obviously the fact that I made mistakes, and I'm sure many of you out there have too, and it's okay to have made the mistakes as long as you rectify them and improve on their care. So my first ever mistake from having guinea pigs in the past was, number 1, I've got them on my iPod here, so if I look down that's why, but it's buying them from a pet shop or breeder, and in my case it's been both. And I've never actually rescued a guinea pig, and I feel awful for that. I have made so many mistakes in the past by going to a pet shop instead, although the pet shop I did go to buy 3 of my guinea pigs was a reputable, I can't say that word, reputable, I can't say it. Anyway, you know what I mean. One of those pet shops that was actually a good pet shop. However, I did buy a guinea pig there out of the 3, and she came to me pregnant. So obviously it's not obviously that great. So even though their care was good, whoever they were getting them from, the breeder, was obviously not separating them early enough with the boys and the girls. So fortunately she had a lethal guinea pig baby, which is a mutated gene. Anyway, I'm going off on a right ramble, but that is a good sign that you don't know what you're getting from a pet shop. Getting from a pet shop, a lot of them are like from guinea pig farms where just they're completely like churned out. And since there are so many guinea pigs in rescue, and they are actually quite widely available, one of the things I didn't really think about when I was a kid was that rescuing, even that didn't really even come to my head, but looking back there wasn't as much available back then. However, I think there was probably more available than I thought there were. And nowadays, like looking on Google and everything, finding reputable, oh, I said it right there. Did I say it right? Rescues around the country, in the UK anyway, you can find them really easily, and the RSPCA have guinea pigs as well, and there's actually quite a lot of them. So looking at that and thinking these poor guinea pigs that have been rehomed, you can save a life and actually take them home. And a lot of them are young as well. People have a misconception about rescues that they're all old and they're all like got illnesses or something. They haven't. A lot of them are like young. Like the boy that I am adopting soon, Finley, he has been born in rescue. From his mum was from a hoarder situation, but I will go into more detail when we have him. He was born in rescue, so he's just over 7 months, so he's a relatively young piggy. And you people might not think that you can get a young piggy at a rescue, but you can. So buying it from a pet shop is, you really don't know what illnesses it's going to come back with. You don't know if it's going to be pregnant, like in my case. You just don't know anything about them and what kind of care they are. So a lot of pet shops are also really bad at caring for guinea pigs. And I remember once going into Pets at Home, not bashing Pets at Home at all, because I do buy some things from there, but I personally wouldn't buy an animal from there. But I did go in there once, and there was a guinea pig with its eye, and it was all gunky, and I told one of the people there, and they picked it up, looked at it, and said, oh yeah, that looks bad, and then just plopped it back in the pen with all the other guinea pigs. And I was not impressed. That poor guinea pig is probably really suffering as well, and are you not going to give it vet attention? But also, are you going to separate it so it's going to stop spreading if it's a contagious disease? So it was just awful. But anyway, I would highly suggest not getting from a pet shop. Along with that, breeders. Now there are good breeders out there, and I have to say, from where I got Clara and Arabella, was a really good breeder. He was breeding quite locally to me, and he didn't breed like crazily. The breeder I got Daphne from was, looking back, the signs are there, but I got her, she was like, went to see her like when she was a few weeks old, and she had a nice shed for them, and they were all on the floor, and they had a good space, and the boys and the girls were separated obviously. So that was really good, and that's what I kind of looked at, and I was like, oh, I really like this setup. I think it's really nice. But then I remember when I went to pick her up, I said, so obviously is she healthy and everything? She said, well, I wouldn't be selling her if she wasn't healthy. And then she said, but we did have a bout of fungal infection on a boy guinea pig, but she's not been anywhere near him. So he'd had the fungal infection. Now when I got home, and a few days later, and I was just checking her over, and I was going through a quarantine period anyway because she was been separate from my girls, she ended up having fungal infection, and that ended up spreading to the other girls, ended up even spreading to my thumb. I had to go to the doctors to get oral medicine because topical was not getting rid of it, and I had literal months trying to get rid of this fungal infection. It was an absolute nightmare. I've heard of people dealing with fungal infections before and it's not been as bad, but this was one stubborn old infection. It would not budge. I was doing dips with them, I was doing baths with medicated shampoo, I was giving them topical cream, I shaved Clara's like back. If you look at our old videos, you will probably see some of those. I shaved her whole back and was applying this stuff because it was just spreading on her, and it was just awful. It was absolutely awful. The amount of stress that I went through in that period was just horrendous. And then when I got it, I was like, oh my god, because eventually they had to have a oral medicine, and that thankfully cleared up, and they also had swabs done on all of them to make sure that it was gone. Rambling on about this fungal infection, but that was an absolute nightmare, and that is another reason why I would never go to a breeder again. Rescues are generally very good at making sure they are all healthy and minimizing any kind of like contamination with other guinea pigs if they've got an illness. I would highly recommend going to a rescue instead of a pet shop or a breeder. Number 2 is too small a cage. Now looking back at the cage sizes that I had for 2 sets of guinea pigs, the cages were probably at most like 1.20 meters by like 50 centimeters. I think even less than that. It might have been even just 1 meter, the bottom one, and the top one was slightly bigger, but they were nowhere near big enough for the guinea pigs to run, to play. My guinea pigs, Raspberry and Kiwi, who were my first ever guinea pigs, they were very, very subdued and quite lazy, and I didn't really realise why. Obviously now knowing the cage size that they actually need, and if you can give them more, that's absolutely like beneficial to them, but the cage size was so small that they obviously couldn't run around in it. It was just like cruel looking back, and I feel so awful for it and guilty, because it's not nice to think back to your previous animals and think, oh my god, what did I let them live in? And I do really feel awful for it. I'll never be able to make up for what those guinea pigs had to live in, and sadly lots of people have made this mistake, and it's very common. Cage size, you need to have the minimum. There are many websites now on the internet, and also I have a series of importance things, and that has got cage size in it, and it's got a little chart on it that says exactly how many guinea pigs you have to what kind of cage size they need. So that is one of my other mistakes. Number 3 is their daily food. So a lot of you now know that I feed my girls Oxbow pellets. Oxbow are one of the best pellets out there, and I was feeding them on Burgess, but I'm not talking about this current lot of guinea pigs, I'm talking about my prior guinea pigs. So my prior guinea pigs were on like a muesli base food, and I was like just topping it up all the time. Wondered why Raspberry and Kiwi were pretty porky, and didn't really think, oh, maybe I should reduce that. Me, old brain, I just don't understand. But anyway, I was feeding them easy, so again they were kind of picking out a lot of the stuff that they liked the most, so they're not getting all the nutrients from just the pellet. So generally pellets, they are all mixed in together, and so the foods, they can't pick at it. They're not as exciting for them to eat, I suppose, pellets, but if you bring your guinea pigs up on them or slowly change them over to it, they will become used to it. And my girls really like the Oxbow ones actually, but the muesli, I'm sure if they had a choice of muesli or pellets, they'd probably go for the muesli. However, it's not as good for them, and especially with the amount I was feeding my old guinea pigs, it was an utter joke. Number 4 is vegetables and fruit. Now, I think at most I fed them, I at least did once a week, most maybe twice a week, I fed them vegetables and fruit. I was generally feeding them high sugar foods like carrots, melon, apple and things like that, so it wasn't things that really they should be having a lot of. And I remember having plates and having it like piled on top. And Raspberry and Kiwi, when I first had them, because I had them ages before I had the other set of 3, I had them on the floor, and I would just give them this massive pile of veg, and they would obviously just sit and eat. And it was not the right vegetables and fruit to give them. I should have been giving them nice greens, and also giving it to them daily and making sure their vitamin C was up. Fortunately, they never ever had problems with vitamin C deficiency or anything like that. However, I think if I'd kept maintaining that, it probably would have led to something. So that's a big thing to consider. You want to be giving your guinea pigs a minimum vitamin C allowance of daily veggies. My girls go mad for their veggies. Every time they hear the fridge go, especially when it's around noon, they start weaking. I can hear them from downstairs, and as soon as I come in, they're all like lined up at the side of the cage, like begging, wanting their veggies straight away. So they absolutely adore them, and I give them nice healthy greens and bell peppers daily, and then occasionally I will give them carrot, or occasionally I will give them some fruit like melon, because they don't really like any other fruit. But anyway, the last mistake that I made, well, one of the biggest mistakes, are not enough floor time. Especially with their size of cage, it was impairment. What's the word? Impairment? No, I'm getting all jumbled with my words today, but with the size of their cage, it was completely needed for them to have more floor time, like hours of floor time a day. Like, they needed that. If I could only, for some reason, only give them that small cage. I hate my old self and the fact that I did that to guinea pigs. It just makes me so angry with myself, but I can't unfortunately turn back time. But I should have been giving them floor time more regularly, at least daily with those size cages. So I wasn't. I was probably doing it about once or twice a week again. Generally with their vegetables, I would have them on the floor. They would have a whole run of the room, so it would be a decent floor time, but it was obviously not as frequent, and it needed to be, especially with their cage size. So that is the last like big mistake that I made. I feel that I may get hate for that, like for all of the points. So if I do, I do, you know, that's really the reality of the situation. That's what I did as a young girl, and I feel more than guilty for it. Like, it really upsets me and angers me how like completely ignorant I was and that I didn't realise, and it just really frustrates me. So I wanted to make this obviously aware to all of you lot that it's a thing that I think a lot of pet owners go through. They have animals, they don't treat them as really they should in cases of kind of like ignorant mistakes, like obviously not animal abuse or anything like that, but I'm talking about like ignorant mistakes where you're forgetting or you're not researching enough about your animal and you're doing things completely wrong. And it's always good to improve on what you've got. So I'm always looking to improve on my guinea pigs and on their care and everything, like I said earlier in this video. So I think it's really imperative, that's the word, care is always maintained, but also you can look for like positives and look for things to improve on, because we are never perfect as owners. We can always improve their lives and give them more special things to do and just increase their enjoyment of life, because they are completely dependent on us, like I mentioned earlier. And it's sad to think that some animals, you know, they don't have a voice, so we are their voices and we are the ones that are meant to look after them, and they don't know any better, sadly. Like, you know, when they're in that cage, they're not aware that there's a better life out there. So it's just really sad that we all do make these mistakes. However, it's great to reflect on these and think back to what we had done in the past and think how much more we've improved and like how far you've come in your pet care. So don't be too hard on yourselves if you've made these mistakes too, and I try not to be too hard on myself. However, it's very hard when it's a living creature and that guilt is there. It's not like it's just a random inanimate object, so it's an actual living thing with feelings and emotions. So it's quite difficult, but I hope that this video was helpful to some of you and it made you aware, you know, you've got to be on it with having animals. You've got to be completely up to date with information, and pet care is always changing, so improvements to pet care is always evolving, and that is why it's so important to look for that. But I hope you have enjoyed this video nonetheless, and I'm sorry if I've rambled off, but it's quite a chatty video, this one. But thank you so much for watching, and I shall speak to you in my next one. Bye!